Welcome back with the Power Perception Podcast. It is your host, Langihola. Today, we're being joined by former defensive tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, Highland High School alum, Salt Lake City's finest, Haloti Ngata. Thank you, man, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be on the show.
No, man, we're truly humbled. If you've seen a lot of my other episodes, one of my reoccurring questions that I like to start off with is, when's the first time you got playing the sport of football?
Let's see. First time I ever got in football was in Little League, and I played for West Little League in Rose Park, and we're in a championship game. This is when I was 8. This is when my first year playing, and we were playing Olympus, and they're a small team. They're not known to be big at all. But like me knowing that I'm big, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need to like. I didn't know, like I didn't know like angles and just watching your blind side. Dude, and like their center, who was probably the smallest lineman, he pulled, but I kind of like followed him out there, and I was looking at the running back, and he came back and like earholed me, and I'm like, hold this. So I mean, he knocked me down. He didn't like rock me, but like he knocked me down, and I was like, dang, I gotta like put my head on a swivel all the time since then. So like, I learned it at a young age. I was 8 years old. It was my first championship game, and we played Olympus, and the smallest center freaking knocked me down, and I just ever since then I had to remember, like, dude, when you run, you better
be careful.
Look out for everyone.
Yeah. Man, that's funny because I remember when I asked Star that question, he had a similar experience. He said it was like some small little wrestler kid from West Jordan. Like he wasn't even over 205, and he said, "Man, that kid gave me hell though. Like the whole game, he didn't fight stuff."
You gotta be careful with these little kids, man. They little like Tasmanian devils, man. They'll come after you.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So, I think a lot of the polys, just growing up, I think a lot of us have a tendency to, we gravitate to sports. What was kind of your introduction into getting into sports?
Yeah, I mean, so I watched my dad play rugby for the Manly League in California. That's where I was born, and we moved here when I was like 7. So I used to watch my dad. I remember always watching my dad play, and then watching my brothers play football on the side while my dad was playing rugby. And we came here, and my older brothers, I had 2 older brothers, started playing football. And so I just always watched them. And so like that's what my introduction to sports was, watching my dad and my older brothers play rugby and football.
So you said you have brothers that played. I've heard stories that from a bunch of people from like Rose Park and Glendale saying that your older siblings were pretty athletic had they not chosen the direction that they went into. Maybe elaborate on that.
Totally. Both my older brothers got involved in gangs at a young age. Obviously, I think it's the reason why we moved to Utah in the first place, because my parents didn't want them to be involved in the gang life in California, because they were kind of leaning that way. But it followed them here, and they found those same guys and same friends here, and did those things. But like you said, my brothers were way more athletic than I was.
That's
were
crazy.
running backs and linebackers, and I was O-line, D-line. Like they were the skilled players, and that's what I wanted to be too. My oldest brother, Finau, was a running back, linebacker star, and I was like, man, I can't wait to be the same thing, get the ball, run the ball, and knock some heads off from being a linebacker, and didn't get to do it because I was just always big.
Man, that's funny to even think about, because like especially like when you were making your waves through the league, they always looked at you as the big guy who was really athletic, and that probably comes from trying to keep up with your older brothers.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, even all my friends too. Like all my friends are smaller, and I always try to like keep up with them, and just just always like be a running back or somebody like a safety, and never was in my cards to play those skill positions.
Wow, that's awesome. You talked about how you guys moved from LA coming here to Salt Lake City. Um, Maybe talk about your guys' transition from LA to here and how you acclimated living here in Salt Lake.
Yeah, we went from Kelly being around so many families. My mom's side of the family was every all over Southern California, and so we lived with a lot of my uncles and aunts and cousins, and so we went from that to coming here and moving to Utah, and not really having many aunts and uncles around. I did have an uncle Haloti who I was named after. He was playing at the U at the time. Actually, he's just finished, and then one of my dad's brothers that lived here, and that was basically kind of it. And with close relatives. So going from like having a lot of family all the time, everywhere we went, to not having as much was probably that was the adjustment. But other than that, I mean, we did the same things. We go to visit family on weekends and go to
Hmm.
church on Sundays, and just did our thing. So other than not having much family around, that was probably the biggest adjustment I think for me.
So you talked about how your brothers got involved in the gang life. Um, how was it for you? Choosing the opposite direction and abstaining from all that stuff. What was the reason why that
Yeah,
kind of?
so I mean, uh, it's crazy because I look at my brothers, and I'm so thankful for them because obviously without um, their examples of what not to do, I probably would have ended up with hanging out with the same kind of friends. But at a young age, I was just lucky. I had a good head on my shoulders, and listening to my parents argue about my older brothers, fighting over them, and then my brother is getting beat for running away, doing bad things, and always getting in trouble. And I was scared of my dad, so I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to get into this gang life where I'm going to cause my parents to argue and make decisions of what they want to do with them. And so um, everything they did, I just did opposite. I kind of watched them, and they did the alcohol abuse, drug abuse at home, and my dad coming home beating them for doing that, and I was like, man, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do any of that, and um, just made sure I just didn't do anything what my brothers did, and that kind of kept me out of it.
So I have a younger brother right now, and I didn't get into gangs and drugs per se, but he kind of saw the things that I should have done and capitalize on them. Was there ever a sense of like mentorship where they were like, "Do as I say, not do as I do" with those guys?
No, a lot of it was crazy because they were in the TCG, Blue Crips, and so I was like, they knew I wasn't the same as them. They knew I didn't want to get into that life,
Hmm.
and so they were like, if I had like I had red shorts and this red FUBU cut off shirt,
Hmm.
and they let me wear it. But everything else bred in the house was like thrown away. Nobody could wear it, but they knew I was different, so I kind of just wore whatever. And they were like, you know what, you're different. I don't care what you wear. Like you can wear red, you can wear blue, whatever. Like we didn't. They never treated me like as another like I'm gonna come up and be another gang member like them. They just treated me as like, oh, you're different. You're gonna make something with your life. You're a good student. You're a good athlete. And they knew I was making my parents proud, so they kind of just they didn't care what I did and what I wore and stuff like that.
Man, that's pretty cool. I think Deion Sanders, was it Deion? I think Him and Ryan Clark. I think Ryan Clark just released a tweet talking about, you know, OGs in the hood used to look out for young fellows who are on their way,
Yeah,
and I think for this generation, they're talking about like guys who are looking to take advantage or who aren't looking out for younger kids who are coming up. Maybe talk about it doesn't necessarily have to be your brothers, but who
yeah.
were like mentors within the community that probably looked out for you that you're thankful for today.
You know, honestly, I feel like other than my parents, my uncle Haloti, who I'm named after,
Hmm.
um, I think he saw some potential in me with sports, and because I was always a good student. But I think him always coming around, having me come like go hang out with him in weekends and spend time with him and his kids, and just keeping me away from like any possibilities of going out with my brothers and doing stuff with them. Um, Plus, he did a lot of good things in the community, and my mom and him were very similar in the community where they would always do a lot of community service. So I kind of just followed them. So my mom was, it's kind of ironic because my brothers would go around the neighborhood tagging, putting like, all over the streets. And my mom would be on Saturdays painting all the gang signs in the neighborhoods. And my uncle was the same way with great community service. And um, I just followed them, and they were great examples to me of how to always serve and, to help your community out any way you can.
Right, you know it's funny. I often see that I don't know if it's just our Tongan culture, but whenever you have a namesake, there's always like a special bond and tie to it. And I've noticed like with a lot of family and friends, like if they ever have a namesake, they'll take the time out to just spend time with their namesake alone, aside from all the
Absolutely.
nieces and nephews. And so
Yeah.
seeing that like that's just cool to me.
No, that's awesome. I love that about our culture because my younger brother Vili named his son after me,
Hmm.
so he's another Haloti Ngata. But like, it's yeah. I always ask him like, "Hey, what does he need? Like, does he need new shoes? Does he need bag? New clothes? Like, it's just like, dude, let me know." It's almost kind of like you're basically another parent to him. Like,
Hmm.
that's what I felt like. My uncle Haloti was basically like me as when I was a kid growing up, and basically it's just kind of pass it down, and it's yeah. Have all my siblings we have kids named after each other. Like you could tell they spoil the one more than the other
Yeah,
because
that's
it's my sister Ahmed spoiled my niece Ahmed, and yeah, it just goes around and it just continues. It's pretty. I love it about our culture.
yeah, awesome, awesome. So I think I sent you a question saying, being that, Polynesian communities like really centered around families, right?
Yeah,
Um, how would you say that, like, being that we're so family oriented, translates into sports?
yeah. That's an awesome question, and I love that question because it's amazing that a coach that knows Polynesians can just say, "I'm gonna tell your mom or dad," and then those kids line up right away, or "I'm gonna tell your uncle," "I'm gonna tell your older brother," stuff like that. And so the thing for me is like, what I think our culture is great for, and putting it into sports is the respect aspect of your elders.
Hmm.
So it's sometimes we do get crazy and do dumb things, but if a coach understands us and knows us and like, hey, I'm not to tell your dad on you, or like, and we know like, oh, you know what, you're right, I'm out of line. I respect what you're doing. So the respect thing is huge, and like we in the Polynesian culture or Tongan culture, we have a hierarchy. So like, obviously, the older person is always going to be right no matter what, even though if he's wrong. Like it doesn't matter. You just shut your mouth and like, yep, you're right. Yeah, like just keep on. And so I think that's why a lot of us are very coachable, is because even though a coach could be wrong, we're just going to go full speed. And the coach said to do this, I'm going to go freaking smack somebody because he said to go do that. But that's what I love about our culture is just the respect and hierarchy of respecting your elders, and then always listening. And then we just go all out, and we're so loyal to the people that care for us, and we'll just do anything for them.
Man, that's awesome. I think one of the other things with our Polynesian culture is family. You know, I don't think many people grow up like we do. Like when we have a cousin, that's family. Like when we have a distant cousin, they're still family. When we
Yeah,
have a distant aunt or uncle who just shows up at our door, we treat them like they're our mom's siblings, or you know what I mean.
yeah.
And I think whenever that translates into the football field, or especially the locker room, there's a certain sense of inclusivity with the Polynesian players. Like there's never a
Oh,
person who can't hang out with us.
yeah. That's what I love about our culture. That, like you're saying, I feel like we become a bridge between the whole team.
Hmm.
Like, Polys always hang out together, but like we include everyone. We're all inclusive, like you said. Um, and I just feel like that's what we bring, such a great camaraderie to the team. But it's just I've always kind of realized that with myself is like I felt almost like a bridge between certain players or certain offense, defense, black, white. It's like it's just we feel like we're like in the middle. So like, hey, let's come together and let's go hang out and do something together. Like it's just I love that about us because I know we all feel the same and all inclusive, like you said. I love it.
Awesome. So I think my second question I wanted to ask is you know, we come from such humble beginnings, especially, you know, 90% of all of our parents pretty much being God fearing parents. So like the first thing they say when we get into sports is, you know, be humble, you know, no matter what, how good you are. But I think to reach any certain level of, you know, greatness, there's a line between, you know, humility and confidence and being able to do what you do at a high level. How are you able to navigate that line? Because I often feel like um, we as Polynesians can be humble to a fault sometimes. So that would be my.
Yeah, totally. So the thing about what made me great, I believe, was the humble part and just doing my job to the best of my ability. Um, and honestly, like you said, humility can be get in the way where we're like we're not out there putting ourselves out there and cheering and it's all about me and stuff like that. But honestly, I feel like with me taking on double teams. I'm such a big guy, like taking on double teams, and that was my job. Like I became the best at just doing that, and I was like, my job is to hold two guys up and side to side. That's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna be the best at it. And I try to figure out any way I could to be the best at that job. So, um, for me, it was more like be humble. Your job was just to take on double teams and be the best at it. And eventually, I became so good at it that it's like they knew guys couldn't block me, double team me. So when they single blocked me, I made the tackle. So it's just that's how I started like making plays, is because they didn't want to double team me anymore.
Hmm.
Like it's dumb because you're losing a blocker because you eat them both up. And that's when I started making plays because like if I'm going to take on double teams, somebody else got to make it. If I'm not getting double team, then obviously one of us has to make it. If you're getting single block, but I just wanted to be the best at taking on double teams and being humble about it, even though I know it's not uh, shown out there as like, oh, he's doing such a great job. People don't really recognize it, but I did so well at it that it's like people just started recognizing, like, man, like Ray Lewis is on fire again. Let's look why he's on there, and like you got two guys in front of him that they can't get to him because I'm holding up the guy. So, yeah, humility does get in the way, but I feel like if you're willing to do your job to the best of the ability, plays are going to come your way, and you're going to have to make it when it comes your way.
Awesome, awesome. I think oftentimes, you know, a lot of kids can get caught up in. I think the social media has turned everything into instant gratification, and so they only see the highlights of the games, but they don't see the work it takes to go into it, all the sacrifice it took to get to that moment
Yeah,
or time. And so it's kind of like refreshing to see, like, you know, hard work still beats everything at the end of the day.
yeah, totally. Like I tell my kids all the time. I have four boys, and and they are the same thing. They see stuff online, YouTube, watch the highlights of whatever, and I tell them like, you got to explain to them like, when that happened, why they made that play. It's like, oh, they probably practice. Like, no, it happened in off season when they were training, working out, watching film, self scouting themselves. So it's like they kind of don't get it now. But I was like, you got to do all the hard work now, so that you can be great later. And then it's just great. My oldest son is 12, and then I can see it like turning in his head, like, so he didn't make that play, like, because he did it that week, or I was like, no, they're like that's the thing that he has to like understand is like the harder you work at something, it's gonna pay off later. So now, I mean, he's way into basketball now and doing all that, and so I'll hear him in the basketball in the gym, just shooting hoops and just working on it. So it's fun to like see him kind of like go through that process in his mind, and but yeah, totally hard work definitely beats everything. It's just the king of being great because like without that hard work, um, your body won't recognize or your mind won't recognize things when they come along at those moments.
Awesome. Um, so I kind of want to backtrack. I always like hearing what went into people's decisions and why they played at this prospective colleges that they played at. Um, so you ended up choosing Oregon. What was the reason why you chose Oregon?
So yeah, like we're going through decisions of where to go for official visits, and honestly, I was this number two player in the country behind Vince Young, and I just told my dad, I was like, hey, let's go anywhere you want to go. Like I don't care. Like my parents, from Tonga, I haven't been around the country much. So let's just go where you think will be a good place for me. So my parents chose A&M. My dad had cousins there, so he's like he wanted to go visit them
Mm-hmm.
and go to the campus there. And then we went to Nebraska. They're great defense back then. I think that's why my dad chose them. Good defense, the black shirts, Nebraska, UW. My mom had a sister that lived in Washington or Seattle, so we went there. BYU because of church. My mom mainly wanted me to go BYU, and then Oregon. Um, and Oregon was kind of like I don't know why my parents chose Oregon. Like they just came out of nowhere. My parents said, hey, "Let's just try to go Oregon." I'm like, okay. Like Oregon was not even on my mind. Like that's what's so crazy about it. But auto visits, like I had, a lot of fun on the visits. But the thing that caught my eye about Oregon, out of all the different schools that we went to, was for me, like I wasn't looking like everyone. You go to a recruiting trip and everyone's spoils you. The red carpet's out, and feed me like crazy. Try to have fun, go do your thing with other players. But when I was at Oregon, I was hanging out with some of the players. I just felt the most um, comfortable with them. I was just hanging out with the D line, and then like um, one of the guys that came up to me, his name was Igor Olshansky. He said, "Hey, if you come here, I'm gonna make you better, and you're gonna make me better, and we're gonna push each other in the weight room and on the football field. We're gonna be a great team." And I was like, "Dang!" And like that's something I wanted to hear. Like everywhere you go is like, "Oh, come here, you're gonna be a starter. You're gonna be the guy for us," and this and that, and like nobody said they're gonna push me, or I'm gonna push somebody else, and we're gonna be great. And so that's what I loved about hearing from Igor was um, that him affirming me that I was going to be great and that we're going to do it together and push each other. That's like um, for me going into my recruiting trip, I was looking at like who's going to make me better, um, and who can I see myself being around for the next 4 years, 4 or 5 years of my life, and I felt comfortable with those players. And so, luckily, I was my parents chose Oregon because that was like out of all the trips, those players I felt really comfortable with, and that was probably the ultimate decision that pushed me over to make the decision for Oregon.
Man, that's awesome. I I think it's so fascinating to see why people choose what they choose, and a lot of guys go with comfort. A lot of guys go with who's going to set me up for success, and some guys even choose who's going to be straight up with me regardless of what's going
Yeah.
on. And so I remember we went on my little brother's recruiting trip, and Frank Miley was the one who was taking him through Utah State, and I had heard pitches from all the schools that were recruiting him, and Frank knew that our family was like a really like religious based family. Like we believed in the church. He was planning on serving a mission, and so he pulled me and my little brother into the room, and then the head coach took my parents, and Frank was just sitting down and he was breaking down film, and he was like, "So Mata was like, I'm not gonna promise you anything because I don't know. Like sometimes kids look great and then they show up here, and then they look like night and day. It's like, but the thing I can promise you is, um, the way I teach this defense is how we live the gospel. Number one, accountability. It's like two, and then he just started going through like gospel principles that apply to my little brother. And honestly, like when my little brother was in every other meeting and people were hyping him up, he doesn't really like that, and so he would just kind of like shut off. And it was the first time I seen his eyes were like wide open. And then after the meeting, I was like, "So what do you think?" And he's like, "That was the realest pitch I heard the whole entire recruiting process." And I was just like, he has like uh, a scoop and an insider because he knows our parents, and so like it was like cheating for him because he knew my little brother was like all in on the church and wanted to serve a mission. And so as soon as he said those things, it's like dang. And so my little brother left. He's like, "Yeah, we can go wherever, but I'm about to commit here, so it doesn't really matter."
That's good, man. It's good that coaches, understand and know their players like that. But yeah, it's just yeah, Frank. I've never really met Frank and spent time with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I met him a couple of times, but never spent time with him, and just heard nothing but good things about Frank. So
Yeah. Crazy story. It just like came up as I was listening to that. So
that's awesome that he's able to do that. Understand.
So coming from Oregon, you're getting ready for the process of the draft. I feel like there's always that like climactic moment whenever you're about to get drafted from stories that I've heard. How was your draft experience for you going to the Ravens?
And that was bittersweet for me. So I'm training in Houston after my redshirt junior year. I declared for the NFL with my mom's blessing, but I'm training in Houston. I'm out just getting ready for the combine, but I get a call from my uncle Haloti and telling me my mom just passed away.
Oh wow!
And man, that like rocked me, but it hit me hard. But like, I had my dad pass away my freshman year in college, so that hit me harder because I've never lost somebody that close. So I kind of like I lost faith. I just I sheltered myself, or I built a whole like shelter around myself, and kept myself away from everyone, and went through that whole college career with not the whole the next year thinking I was unstoppable in football because I was really good at it, and was up for like a preseason All-American as a sophomore, and because I had a great freshman year. But the first game of my sophomore year, I tear my ACL, and I was done for the rest of the year. So that was like the humble part, right? Like Christ is like, "Hey, I'm trying to carry you through this, and you're shitting me away. Like, I need you to come back to me." So that was basically my comeback story in faith. And then going into the combine, mom gives me the blessing to go. I want to spoil her because she's going through so much heartache, working so hard throughout my whole life. And so I want to spoil her, so I want to go to NFL. And then she dies of a heart attack. And so like, man, I'm like, dang, like I lost my why. Like I was like, But the reason why I wanted to go to the NFL was I wanted to spoil my mom and give her everything that she wanted, and she didn't have to like stress anymore. And so I kind of went through the rest of that training, kind of like going through the motions, and luckily I had good enough numbers to and good enough year to get drafted in the first round. But that whole process was exciting, exciting, exciting. Mom passes away, and it's kind of like, dang, like there's no reason to like go so hard now. So my first couple of years in the NFL was kind of hard, but or harder than it needed to be because I was trying to figure out what my why was. But luckily, I got drafted in '06, married in '07, had my oldest son in '09. So that was like my why. Right when I had my son, I'm like, oh man, I gotta like provide for somebody now and watch out for an actual like little kid and baby. That turned everything around. That's when I started making Pro Bowls and stuff like that. But yeah, that whole like combine process is it's tough. It was way tougher for me because you know not for me only, but like at that time for me because losing my mom when I wanted to spoil her and she was kind of like my why at that time. Um, that made it hard.
Man, that's so like that's crazy to think about. And then whenever you talked about how having a kid changed your perspective in terms of having your why restored in this instance,
Yeah.
I remember. So if you don't know, so my sister is Flewa, who's married to Star, and
Yeah.
I remember hearing stories about Star when he was in high school, and everyone would always say, "Oh, he's such a talented player, this and that," but his work ethic was always lacking. And then when my sister got pregnant while they were up at Snow, it was like she told us it was like night and day because he's like the job he was working was a moving company, like the whole nine. And then as soon as she was born, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to the NFL." Like no ifs, ands, or buts. Like this is how I'm gonna pay
Yeah.
for a living for my family. And so like she
Yeah.
she didn't have to wake him up anymore to go do training and this and that. It's like everything was just like clockwork as soon as that happened. And so I think that's crazy because I've had that experience similar with my daughter as well.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think it's the same thing. Like just seeing an actual baby, it's yours, man. It's just, I mean, it's hard for me not to believe in God because
Hmm.
it's just like no other way. Like I'm like this is crazy. Like, but then to also have responsibility of an actual child is like, man, that freaking like just like Star lit a freaking thing up my butt and started grinding.
Yeah. So you get to the Ravens, after going through the whole entire draft process. You have some of the most prominent figures in the NFL as teammates. You're replacing guys who were pretty good at their jobs too, as Saragusa, Sam Adams, guys like that. And then you go and play with Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Suggs, the whole nine. What was your kind of like, maybe give us a story of how was your first meeting with those guys and being interacting with them.
It's funny because Terrell Suggs is probably like was one of my best friends. I mean, just being in the NFL, but I disliked him the most in the beginning. He's just loud, obnoxious, cocky. Um, it just makes you do things that you don't want to do. As a rookie, you're like, oh, go pick up the weights, or go grab all the pads. I'm like, dang, dude, like I went through practice too. Like I'm tired too. But like it's just crazy. But like I just did everything, and then we kind of just created a bond like after camp, and because we played on the same side a lot. Like we're always like the backside or weak side away from the tight end, and so and I was the three tech away because we played like an underlook away from the tight end, and so it was always me and him, and so we kind of created an awesome bond, and it just kind of grew from there. But But that was my first thing with Shrugs. I was like, man, you're like a jerk. And like, I want to be your teammate, but obviously he's just doing it to see how how good of a teammate you can be. Like, see how far you can go and test you out. But and he's I love him like a brother. So it's like it's just crazy. But then like Ray Lewis, my first practice. Actually, never mind. I get drafted. Ray Lewis calls me. I didn't answer. Leaves me a message, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to get your feet right and get some cardio in, like do some jump rope in, blah blah blah." So he leaves that message. I'm like, "Dang, I was starstruck." I was like, "Saw me like listen to this message," and I was like, I got excited, and the first practice, or we're getting ready to go out to practice, and he goes, "Hey, how come you never called me back?" Oh man, I didn't want to bother you, Mr. Lewis. And he goes, "Hey, hold up. Don't ever call me Mr. Lewis. My name is Ray." I was like, "Oh," but I just didn't want to like, but because he's so, you watch him. I watched him since high school. I feel like, and you think he's so. I thought he was just so nice and old, but like, it's just like, dang, like I can't believe I'm like playing with this guy now. And so like that was my first story with Ray Lewis. He's just a regular guy. Like everyone's like, "Dude, how's Ray Lewis?" Is like, dude, he's pretty tight, man. Like he's chill, down to earth, God fearing guy. And so it's just we kind of just he loved having me because he knew I was going to be his blocking guy again. Yeah. So Ed Reed, it's the first week of practice, training camp. My first weekend. I make a mistake on a play, and I'm backside. I'm supposed to be like slanting, and I didn't. And I'm like jogging to the ball. I'm like, dang, like hitting my head. Ed Reed's flying, and he clips me and falls. And he gets up. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, and I was like, "Man, I messed up on the play." And he's like, "It doesn't matter. You gotta sprint to the ball. We gotta have 11 swinging ding dongs to the ball." And I was like, "Oh man, you're right. Like my bad." So like, it just was crazy because it's hard to be not a great player with having Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed, Jared Johnston, Trevor Price, Chris McAllister, and Samar Rowe. So it's like we had so many good guys. Darius Thomas. So it was like hard not to like
meet them. Yeah,
because they're showing you by example. They show it like in the film room and studying plays, and then they show it on the football field. It's just crazy. So like that was my introduction to those guys, and just all I wanted to do was be great and just kind of follow in their footsteps, and that's kind of like how it started for me with them.
Man, that's funny. What's crazy is how the video I found of Ed Reed that your brother commented on. Yeah, he commented on my page. He's like, "Dang," he's like, "Hey, is this from your podcast?" I'm like, "Oh no, like I don't have any connection to Ed Reed. It's just something I found online." So that's why I ended up tagging Haloti in it. And then he's like, "Oh, do you mind if I use it?" He's like, "I'm not the person to be asking, but yeah, go ahead." And then that's how I was like, he's like, "Hey," he's like, "Wow, you could have my brother on the pod anytime soon?" I was like, he's like, "Man, I'd love to have him on, but he's like, we're just playing phone tag for the most part." And then he was just like, "Oh, hold on," and I think he messaged you to hit me back. Yeah,
he did message me. I was like, "Man, I've been meaning to get back with him, so that's good that he got us back connected."
No, but you know what's funny? So I remember, I don't know if it was your rookie year, but they did a mic'd up with you after you guys played the Bears, I think. And it was like FX Sounds or something. And whenever like we were younger, I remember the first time when I seen that, like me and all my cousins, all my friends were just watching NFL Network, and then that video popped up. It was like a 3-4 minute video. And then all of us were just like, dang, it's so funny to hear Haloti talk, because that's how we talk whenever we're on the field. And then like there's a point in time where you said, it's like, It's like, dang, I just yelled at a coach. Hell yeah. And then like all of us just started laughing. He was like, yeah, like that's how you know, like that's one of us who made it. And I've seen that video around like other people as well who are poly, and that's the same exact reaction every single time. So I don't know if you've ever like heard the reaction of other polys to that video, but like I just wanted to share that with you.
That's funny, yeah, because it's funny when I get back with my cousins that talk the way we used to as kids, and I'm like, dang, I was like, we talked like kids for real. Like we just done dumb things, and we still do when we get around each other. I'm like, man, like we never grow up, but it's just fun. That's I never heard, the reactions of people off of that little highlight, but man, it's just funny how we kind of just all grow up the same.
No, awesome. So I think one of my last questions I want to ask you before we get into our rapid fire questions to close up is it's not, you know, often there's like a um there's a bunch of Polynesian culture within an NFL team. The Ravens are one of them though. They had like Ed Mulitalo, they have you, and then like the next generation of Polys is with Ronnie Stanley now. Maybe go into that, and why do you think Ozzy has chosen Polynesians as a whole?
Honestly, it's crazy because Ozzy and Eric now is the GM there, but I think they see it in us. They recognize the humility we have, but I know they think of us as athletic. So we may be big, but they know. I think that a lot of people are starting to figure that out now. How athletic we really are. I mean, we're big guys with dancing bare feet. Like we can hop around and do things that you don't expect out of big guys. And uh, Ozzy figured that out pretty early, I think. And then now it's kind of like I love seeing so many different polys around the NFL now and on every team. It's pretty awesome. But I think teams are starting to figure out that like, man, these poly guys, man, tell them to do something, they're gonna go out there and do it. And it's just fun to see. But Ozzy, I think, knew and understood early on if you get some polys on the team because he had Make before me, and then Edmund Vital, like you said. But it's just I think they knew and understood the athleticism and strength that we bring. At the same time, it's just very rare to get out of big guys.
Awesome, man. So we'll go ahead and get into these rapid fire questions. So my first one is I got this question from the All of the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes, and I actually really like it. So 5 dinner guests, dead or alive, who would you have sitting at that table with you?
Dude, that's a hard one. I mean, other than obviously relatives like my mom and dad, because I miss them like crazy. Dude, like Bob Marley would be one of I love reggae music, so Bob Marley would be like. It just seemed like he was so standing of like himself in government and just knew that I'm just gotta do my thing, help the people out by in any way I can. So like Bob's obviously he just knew so much. A lot of the stuff I think people thought back when he was singing and having his stuff was like probably sounded like conspiracy stuff, and it's like, dang, this stuff actually kind of came to fruition. But so like him, Bruce Lee, that guy is just his mind strength, mental strength is just something I probably obviously probably will never get into or close to his mental strength, and it just want to be taught by somebody like that would have been awesome. And then Reggie White is like, I chose number 92 because of him.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I loved watching him. He's just a big dude, athletic, use your strength all the time. But at the same time, everyone loved him off the field. So he's a God-fearing man. He was a pastor, great community service person. So I was like, man, he's someone great to look up to. That's plays a sport that I love, and just he would have been a great guy to have met and got to know. So Muhammad Ali is probably another one I would have, and it's all these like icons already, but Muhammad Ali because I met him actually when he was really like fragile and couldn't really talk. And yeah, and I just his confidence and all that is cockiness and all that just would have been I think just something that I would probably would have tried to learn so that I can get into people's minds to like tease and get them off their game. But Muhammad Ali was probably one of the greatest, and then I don't know. I feel like any Bible prophet back in the days, just back in the Bible days, and just questions about Christ, people who knew Christ, and trying to figure out if I'm doing it the right way or not.
That's what's up, man. Okay, dope. We'll go to the next one. If you had to choose another profession in your football prime, what do you think you would have been?
So, my dad did a lot of construction, yate work, cement stuff, but I don't know if I probably wouldn't want to do that because I did a lot of slave work for my dad, but like probably building homes, like framework. I think out in this house that we live in now, and I was always fascinated by how the framers were putting up the house and like how they were doing certain things, and they kind of like sparked a little like interest in me, and like it's like, man, this is probably something I would have probably got into. Other than it's kind of like construction, but building homes and building like custom homes was probably something I probably would want to get into.
All right, that's dope. And then I told you to choose two genres, and then at random, who were two of your favorite artists? Doesn't have to be anyone like your top two, but at random, maybe someone that's currently in the rotation that you listen to a lot right now.
I'm way into Common Kings a lot right now. Like I love listening to Common Kings, and my kids do too. I love when my kids sing along to their songs. I'm like, heck yeah, I'm keeping the reggae. The second one probably be Bruno Mars.
Man, he's a beast performer.
Because I don't know, he can sing, he can dance, and I can't do either. So it's just great.
Okay, and then oh yeah, this one. Being that you and Troy were like the prominent Polynesian players whenever you guys were both at your respective teams from the opposite sides of the rivalry, was there ever any exchanges between you two? Maybe you going to on the field experience playing against Troy.
Yeah, I have like a bone to pick with Troy because he's awesome. Like Troy is just what you see. Like he's very quiet, God fearing, and doesn't talk too much. Very humble. But like every time we played our rival game, if they won, like I was like, hey, good job, man, you're a freaking beast, you're awesome. But every time we won, like he just ran right into the locker room. I'm like, dude, man, we're supposed to meet each other after the game, man. Like, I was like, this guy, don't be so serious, bro.
Oh man, that's funny.
But that he's amazing. Like, I'd hit him up in the offseason every now and then and be like, if I'm in California, because I knew he was there, like, hey, what'd you do for training? I need to do some training, and because he'll be like somewhere I'm not. I'm like, oh, never mind, I'm not gonna come train with you. But yeah, he was cool, always willing to give me advice, and he was just awesome, great player.
Okay. And I think my last question I want to leave you with is who's one guy in the NFL that reminds you of yourself?
Dude, I mean, I feel like it kind of been kind of chain link reaction down, but like Star when he came in, like I knew. I mean, when he was at the U, he was like, "Man, I'm a big fan." Like, so I gave him like a sweater, and he was like, "Hey, so how do you do this and that?" I'm like, "Dude, just take care of your body, man. Like your body's gonna be beat up." So that was like really a lot of my advice to Star. I didn't give him like too much football stuff at that time, but I was like, dude, just take care of your body, man. Your body's gonna get beat up. But like Star plays, like I love the way he plays. Big guy, plays big. He can be big when he wants to, but he can be quick and fast and athletic when he needs to be. And then like you go to like Danny Shelton and Vita Vea. So it's like we kind of like all been like it's kind of going down and
Mm-hmm.
reaching, but like obviously they got their own ways of doing it. So I love watching Vita Vea now, like killing dudes, pushing the lineman back, taking two guys with them, causing havoc. Even though he's not making the play, like I know what he's doing is great because he's causing so many problems for offenses where they need a blocker here, but they can't get there because Vita Vea's in the way, or pushing the pocket so hard that he's getting the quarterback's way view, and so it's fun to see all those guys kind of do their thing, and just I just love it. I love watching college in the NFL.
Dope, dope. Well, first off, I just wanted to say thank you for your time today. The one and
Yeah,
only Haloti Ngata.
yeah. Thanks for having me.